You want to secure your assets.
We can crack the wallet.
Oh, we've done it before.
We've got rigs. Character adversary attribution mode.
With our private keys combined.
Building some kind of blockchain super weapon.
There's just a number of vulnerabilities that are in the smart contracts.
Math. It's probably secure.
They all secretly mine cryptocurrency.
What coin can I trust? Which one is cryptographically secure?
Don't roll your own crypto. CoinSec Podcast. Welcome to the CoinSec Podcast. This is episode number 53. We are here.
We're doing it.
I'm excited.
Wow, Steve's getting his workout during the episode.
Oh yeah, well that's what energy drinks do.
He's lifting weights. I can see him. If you're not watching, you should be.
Make sure you guys join us in the Discord chat. We're in the live chat channel. Come on in there, talk to us today. Hit us with any questions you got as we go through the show. I'm going to post a link to the show notes for today in there so that you guys, if you want to follow along, you can. Otherwise, if you're listening to this later, CoinSecPodcast.com for the show notes. Today, we have an awesome schedule. We've got, lots of hack stories to talk about. But more importantly, we have a special guest. We have Tal Be'ery.
Woo!
Yeah, happy to be here.
Welcome.
Another person who knows more than we do. Great job, Bo.
Yes.
Yeah, we're killing it.
Steve's the one who got us together with Tal. So
it was a fish. I just fished him, and he decided to join.
See, that's why you work here.
Speed phrase Tal.
Yeah. So I'm really happy to be here. And sorry, Steve. If something goes wrong, it's Steve's fault. It's not.
It's always Steve's fault.
Perfect.
It's always is, yeah.
Cool. So Tal, let's talk. So you are a security research manager at ZenGo.
Actually, I'm a co-founder and CTO.
Okay.
Yeah, we started 4 years ago, and now we're a 30-plus company, VC-backed, serious stuff. You can get, we're doing a mobile wallet built with the security-oriented technology of multi-party computation, like high-end crypto tech that solves the problem of the private key by distributing it between different parties. So the key is not in one place. So you, as an attacker, you cannot just take it from there. It's separated in several places, and they communicate with each other, etc. So it really relieves the problem of the private key, which is one of the most important problems in wallets. Obviously, it's not the only problem. I hear we're going to talk today about a lot of Web3 security stuff. So there, the keys are important, but also other factors come in, like smart contracts and so on. So, and we're building this mobile wallet to help, mass adoption, so people would not have to worry about their seed phrases, etc. They can just use the wallet and don't think about the hard crypto parts of it. Just use it as you would use any other digital wallet.
You must really care about security since you decided to make a wallet instead of an exchange or a wallet's like the hard way to go. So that's, you must really care about keeping it locked down.
Yeah, either I care a lot or it was a miscalculation. Maybe I should have just uploaded something.
You should have done a rug pull. You could make a lot more. No, I'm just kidding.
Trust us, we know.
Trust us, yeah.
Yeah.
So Tal, one of the things I follow you on Twitter. I love to see your breakdowns of a lot of the different hacks that come out. It's really cool to see. We were talking about a little earlier how the difference in security in Web3 is that everyone can see the exploits happening as they're happening now. So one of the questions I was going to ask you is how do you keep up with the latest hacks? What do you just is it Twitter? Do you have good news sources that you like to follow?
Yeah. So as an old school before Twitter, I used to RSS, but Twitter is the king, I think, in security and also in Web3. And I don't think I keep up with everything that goes on, but whenever I want to look into something, there's something in the queue, and there are some great stuff out there, let's say a shout out for PackShield, they're crazy, they give you PackShield alerts, Twitter account, it's great about, and also all the Immunify and others that it seems like there's always an interesting hack going on that you can tap into that. And as you said, the most interesting part is once someone puts you on the right transaction or give you the lead, then it's very that the truth is out there, it's reachable for you. If you analyze enough the transaction, what happens on chain, you will understand everything. And I just love this kind of riddles, and it gives me great satisfaction, to understand, how they did it. And also I think if you do it a lot, you kind of develop this intuition and understand what are the real problems in the field. So I think it's very rewarding, and I love to do that. To do it, I also love to read the good write-ups. And so there are guys out there also writing good write-ups, and I like them. The more technical it is, the better. But also, I love it when someone tries to explain that, not to someone of lower level, for more beginners than him, to get more people into this very exciting field.
Absolutely. So when you see, cases like that, like questionable transactions, do you have any go-to tools you like to use, or do you just go to Etherscan and start poking around, or do you have any sort of scripting tools or anything like that you like to use?
Okay, so good magician never tells their secrets. Good security researchers always do. So I have no secrets there. I'll give away my methods, and I hope many people will do it, and maybe they would write the blog instead of me, and I can just read it. But so I really like Etherscan a lot, because it's great to see, I've been in this field at least for the last 4 years, and Etherscan has always been the best tool around, and although they are the best, they keep on innovating and adding more and more features there, and it's just great. So I start with Etherscan in most cases. It gives you a good high-level view. You look into the internal transaction, its logs, and events, and so on and so forth. Another great tool that I really like is Dune Analytics. You know Dune, right?
I've seen you post on the dashboards.
Yeah. So it's really it's not really coding, it's SQL queries, but you can see we all know that the blockchain is basically a database, right? Distributed database, etc., but a database. So the good guys in Dune Analytics just took it and made a database out of it, and now you can query it like you do SQL queries. And I have to tell you, I'm not the best SQL query programmer or something like that, and I always start with something I already know, and then it's kind of play with it, fiddle around with it, and taking some examples from the internet and so on. And that's just great. I was able to, in multi-chain, once I understood what is the vulnerable function, and maybe we'll talk about how I knew that, then I could do a query that would just pop up for me all of whenever it gets executed and abused. So I think and it also helped me to come up with some insights that, for example, this vulnerable function was never in use for good. The first time they used it, it was used on the chain, was on in January 18th, for the exploit. Yeah, so Dune Analytics is great, and it takes some ramp up, but I suggest anyone it was interested to start playing with that. There's good tutorials for that, and you will feel empowered in like after 2 hours of playing with it. Then you can do a lot of great stuff, and also nice dashboards there. So this is a great tool.
It sounds similar to is it Google's BigQuery, Steve?
Yeah, I was just about to post that link. I've got that pulled up. So yeah, Google BigQuery, you can basically, I think it's not live, but daily they get the whole blockchain for Bitcoin and Ethereum and maybe a couple others. But you can do SQL type queries against those chains, and you can even do, like Tal was saying, pull out smart contract functions and see when they're executed and stuff like that. I'll post a link here in Discord. Yeah. It's a really interesting tool to use, and I've used it to pull down, like, do statistics. Like you can put like top wallets, most transactions, things like that. Pretty cool.
Yeah, so I think like I use that too for Bitcoin, but for Ethereum, I think BHUNT is a great tool, and also like they already parsed a lot of smart contracts based on their ABI and so on and so forth. Like I'm not that of a power user, but I think you can learn a lot from there. So I suggest, and also there is great visualization tools, like as you said, to create the dashboard. So this is a great tool. And now I have a new crush on a new tool that I just learned about the other week is Tenderly Debugger, and you can just put it's magic. And I talked about it in the blog that I analyzed the Multichain exploit. In the end of the day, this is I assume most of you debugged an application in your life, so it looks the same. Like take the transaction and you just step into the function, and you can see the call stack of the different contracts and exactly the parameters and so on and so forth. So, for example, I just input the transaction of multi-chain exploit, and then I see, okay, interact with that contract of multi-chain, and it interact with that function. So even if I didn't know exactly how the exploit work, I could immediately deduce which is the vulnerable function and so on. So it gives you quick insights right away, and then it's like it's way easier to analyze things in dynamic manner, that you can see the parameters, see the functional result. It's just, saved me hours of work that otherwise I don't know how I would have done it. But this is great. By the way, I used that also in the OpenSea case, and I'm going to use it in everything I'm going to look into from now on. So Tenderly, it's also free. Like everything I said up until now, maybe there's like pro. Like if you want to be more, all kind of, maybe do it in privacy and save your result and so on. Maybe there's also things, paid subscription for that. But the basic stuff and everything that I did until now was in the free tier. So these are great tools. I can hardly believe they are free. Like they're so good.
For now.
Yeah, okay, for now. You're right.
That's awesome. So Tal, one of the main reasons we wanted to chat with you is because of your analysis around the multi-chain hack that's kind of been ongoing over the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So kind of a quick overview of that, like that's a multi-million-dollar hack, right? So $3 million, I believe, is the number that was stolen. I prefer to talk in ETH because the conversion is not so clear right now. Like it was bigger when it started. I think 1,150 ETH at least were taken, and some of them were returned by, I don't know if it was eventually it was a white hat that defensively hacked some of the users and returned most of the money. So that was interesting. Also, it was interesting, there's some interesting insights in how you should handle such an attack, because I feel that
I don't have the whole story, because the story never goes into the chain, right? The story remains between people, but it seems like some vulnerability, like there was an audit or someone had discovered that vulnerability. This I think they call it DDoB. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, and seems like Multichain decided, like, instead of doing something more rational, like they fixed something in the front end that you can do a differential analysis on the like do a diff between the new contract and the old contract and see where is the problem, and that triggers attackers to actually exploit that. So there was a problem, and that was not cannot be fixed completely, only by maybe stopping that contract, that vulnerable contract, which was not a possibility because Multichain did not think about it originally. And then they just told their users, look, you have, like, again, how do you tell your users when you adapt and you don't have even the user emails and so on? Like, accounts on Twitter, everyone that was in Multichain and previously AnySwap and gave approval to that contract, you have to revoke it. And that, of course, triggered every hacker around, and they just, did just that. So a more reasonable thing to do would be to friendly hack your users and, like, hack them, take them money as Multichain, and then, like, tell them, okay, when you revoke that approval, we'll give your money back to you. It's a bit extreme, but it's better than letting a real black hat, a real bad guy, to take the user's money away.
Yeah, I think we talked about something like that. Geez, I don't know how many episodes ago now, but there was a project that did something similar to that, to where they pulled all the funds. Created
we actually
a new
have
contract.
a story today. We have another story later today where they did that recently.
Nice.
Yeah, it was just like a week or two ago. But we'll talk about that in a bit, where they hacked their own contract because they couldn't pause it, just exactly like what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I think in this case, again, I'm not familiar with all the facts, but it doesn't seem like they had an external pressure, to go out with that. And like, it was not under active exploitation before they announced that. So like, they had the time to prepare for, like, do this friendly hack and then to communicate to their users that would be, I think, a better way to do it. It kind of reminds me, did you talk in the past about the Matic hack, like a few weeks ago, Polygon Matic? Like, there was a similar issue there. And again, Polygon, like,
when they hard forked.
Yeah, exactly. So they, in a way, I think, I don't have any, hard evidence, but I think it's reasonable to believe that they did the hard fork, but before that, they tried it on their testnet, which makes sense because you have to, this is a really scary thing to do. And the testnet, of course, is something public. And so the attackers, like, saw what's going on and understand, like, the problem, and then they hacked the users, because they took some time until they can actually deploy the fixed contract there of Matic. And it was an interesting story there. They tried to claim, like, all parties involved were better off of calling it white hat hacking or something like that, and I call it a bounty. But
that was interesting.
It's exactly like Microsoft when they patch Tuesday, and then everyone goes out and researches what they patched and develops exploits for it before anyone manages to actually update their systems.
It's actually called Exploit Wednesday.
So Tal, one of the questions I was going to ask you around this is, so I mean, yes, the attacker got like around 3 million ish, or the attackers could be plural, maybe.
There was at least 3 main groups for sure.
So one of the things we normally see happen with a lot of, pretty much every smart contract hack out there is they just drain the entire contract. And this one had, what, billions, right, at risk?
Mm-hmm. Like the whole system, billions at risk. And So you're saying why it's like draining it slowly and not taking everything right
exactly.
away.
That's what I'm really curious about.
So it depends. Like it depends on the nature of the vulnerability, because in this case, it needs to be exploited on a per user basis, because you're actually exploiting the user's trust in that contract as manifested with their previous approve function that approved that contract. So it's or like, but by the way, the first attacker that got about 450 ETH, like he took as much as he could with single transaction and aggregated a few users together. So he did it really in compact and so to speak manner. But afterward, like what is interesting is, even if you don't like, why approve is so dangerous is that like you approve also all future holdings you may have in that token. So what happened? Like someone wrapped, like they didn't have any wealth in wrapped ETH in their account, but then they wrapped ETH for some reason and made it wrapped ETH, and then like the attacker got alerted that you put on monitoring on such thing on all the users that previously approved. They're okay, I can take 250 ETH, and that's exactly what happened. So this is and this is the problem. And by the way, multi-chain attacks happen. Like I didn't check in the last few hours, but there was at least 10 transactions like that today. So they keep bleeding until all users have revoked their approvals. And so whatever they would get funds in most cases it's in wrapped ETH, then they will be susceptible to such attack, and the attacker will be able to take the money. So that's why in this case it was a per user exploit. In other cases, you can just drain the contract.
That makes sense. Yeah. So one of the things we kind of briefly touched on before we went live was the idea of contracts that have the ability to revoke all of their users' allowance, right?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of wondering, like, what's the potential there? Like, so currently, like, every user would have to go and manually revoke their own approvals, right? Like they'd have to go do that themselves. Is there a way with smart contracts for the owner to basically say, all right, we have something ongoing, let's go ahead and get rid of all the approvals that have been made on our contract? Just curious your thoughts on that.
I think it might be a good idea to edit the to ERC20s, because that change should be made on the ERC20. It's like something like I forfeit all of my extra privileges per this contract. That could be another good another control, because like you cannot have too many controls. Like it's good to have belts and suspenders, but what can be done on the individual like multi-chain level could have been done had they thought about it originally. Then to add the option to pause the contract, and then if the contract is paused, then no one can actually exploit the fact that this contract still have the ability to take money on behalf of other of users. But since it's not, since it's dormant and it's frozen, then no one can exploit that. So I think and there's like OpenZeppelin publishes tutorials and even templates how to make your contract posable. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a good lesson for the guys that right now are doing all kind of DEXs and smart contract, etc. I know it's hard to think about it, because you just want to ship functionality. But like if you go big, then you probably want to have that option there. And the problem is that smart contracts and EVM, etc., the blockchain is very unforgiving environment, because when you're stuck with the same contract that you started with, unless you designed especially for that. Mm-hmm. For example, like we were talking before about the OpenSea bug, not bug, etc. But like this is a very old contract that it's from 2018 there. Mm-hmm. So it's really, really hard if you do not plan for such incidents from the get-go.
The funny thing would be... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Would there be any functionality to put, say, like a session token or something like that into the contract that says, hey, when you approve it, this time's out in 30 days or 15 hours or whatever? Or is that something that would have to be changed in the protocol?
Oh, I think that like it's kind of related to this hack in a weird way. There's also like something like a proof, but it's permit and it has expiry in it. Like you are giving full control for an account, but it's limited, I think, probably by block numbers or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, both of us coming from, let's say, traditional security. So again, like excessive privileges is a bad thing. Unlimited in time privileges are bad. So I think it makes a lot of sense to use as little as power as possible. It's the best interest. Like it seems to you as a developer or that you need, let's have, like if you're junior, you say, I want max permissions. I want to be able to do everything and not, get stuck with something. And, but as a senior, you say, I want as minimal access. I want the minimal access I get, because otherwise, like it would save me from making all kind of mistakes and getting exploited. And so I think it makes a lot of sense to add more and more things to allow users and admins to limit their access.
Sure, it's like we say, defense in depth, right? In the security industry, same thing applies there. Sorry, Corey, go ahead.
I was going to say, like the pausing is an interesting button. It's a panic button, right? It's saying like, okay, we're getting hacked, pause. But like with the case of this, multi-chain, wouldn't users, like if they pause the contract, no trading, users still have to go and revoke all these approvals. And then, so they basically have to create a window where they're like, you have 30 days or 2 days or however long to revoke these approvals, and then we have to keep rolling. We can't just leave this contract paused forever. So it kind of is like Patch Tuesday, where you say like, okay, here's this patch, everyone apply it. But if you get left behind and miss the patch, then you are vulnerable. Just like, if you're not paying attention, you don't revoke these approvals, the contract can't stay paused forever, right?
Yes and no, because like it's easy to deploy a new version, because I can create new contract and with fixed functionality, and in my interface, web interface, like the DApp, I can refer to it, and everybody is using the new functionality. Like no one is, there is no pointer like for regular users to access the older contract. But the problem is that attackers are not using GUI, right? They can interact with smart contract. That's what happened with the multi-chain. The attackers can still abuse the old contract, and I think it would be for the best. Like I think they should have just paused it. And even if it's a contract, then you are pausing it, and then you need to resume it, because like the system has to function and this contract needs to go back. You're in much better shape. That it depends on the size of the hack, of course, but that I think your users would like. It's not a good thing to have. it's not good thing to get hacked and not good thing to suspend the functionality. But I think the user would appreciate more a project that stops the functionality than a project that and then enables hackers to hack their fund. Like they're never coming back.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, the user, isn't probably aware of all the approvals they've done and all that stuff anyway. So from their perspective, they want the protection of, please keep me from getting hacked. Plus, there's the piling on, right? Once it's public, once it's disclosed, it's not just the original hackers. Other people can go on Twitter and see, oh, there's a vulnerability. Can I go exploit it? Right? It becomes a sort of a chain reaction or domino effect.
Chain reaction. This is a good term in that perspective. Yeah. So in the same manner that I had analyzed that, just because it's of interest of me, like there are people that do it for a living and just copycats. And as you can see, there was a lot of money left on the table. Like the first one got 450, then the second one got about 500. He stole 500, but paid like 10% to Flashbot because he was using Flashbot. And then another one took 250. And so it's not like the first predator like consumed the whole corpse or something like that. There were enough left for other predators. Maybe also because it's hard to launder that kind of money. So say, okay, I already have like $1 million, so let's try to move that on. And there's no point in hacking even more and just putting all the focus on me. So it could be, I don't know exactly about the attackers' motivation and modus of operandi, but I assume it's something like that. They had a reason why they didn't take it all at once and leave more for others.
Well, yeah, there's not that much tornado to go around. The market cap. Just kidding.
Not enough liquidity there. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So Tal, I have another question for you. In one of your tweets, you point out the fact that they, Multichain had sent a message to the hacker, basically pleading with them to give the funds back, and then they had a bounty. So I want to get your thoughts. Like we've seen that happen a few times now across a few different blockchain hacks where the protocol itself, or the token, the company around that actually pleads with their hacker and says, hey, you can keep a portion of this, just give us the rest back. Like, what are your thoughts on that whole model?
Well, I'm also really interested in the ransomware, like not blockchain thing. So it's kind of reminds me that, because again, it's a game theory thing. Like locally, it's of the best interest of the app. That money is gone, so everything you can get back is just a bonus. And also, it's in the best interest, I guess, of the attackers, because they say, okay, we will let you get away with the money. We call it a bounty. It would be clean money. You can just take it, and we will not, try to stop you from laundering it in some DEX or even custodial exchange and things like that. So it's, in a way, it's a win-win locally for all parties involved. But the losers are, of course, the community, because these guys are really bad guys. I think when you talk about, millions of dollars and tens of millions and hundreds of millions, there are, for sure, it's related to the underworld, like the same gangs in, allegedly in Ukraine or Russia or things like that, because it's a lot of money involved. And I would assume the same is with crypto. We don't know who they are. They're just an address, and we don't have any attribution. But this money goes in and feeding the infrastructures of these attackers and become more lucrative. So it just, incentivize the attackers. So I think as a community, it's a very bad thing. But locally, there are no regulations around it, what can be done and cannot be done. And so this is a problem. Also, on that same topic, I don't like, like this laundering the names. Like there's a bounty. Like there are honest researchers that really doing responsible disclosure and getting a bounty, and calling it like someone that hacks you and you call it a bounty, a wink wink. It's
right.
I can't bring myself to call them white hats because, like, as a red teamer, if I was to doing physical engagements and things like that, breaking into buildings and whatever, because I'm authorized to do so, I can't go unauthorized to my local bank, drain them of all their funds, steal that, and then come back a week later and say, "Well, here's $10,000 back. That's my fee." No, it doesn't work that way.
But Steve, code is law, remember?
Code is law. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, so another conundrum here, though, is like the balance between how much companies are paying out for a bounty and how much it costs to actually get a smart contract audit. Because, like, we've seen multiple awards of like $1 million or more over the last month. You know, like this one, the Daub, the company that reported Multichain, got awarded $1 million, and Multichain ended up getting hacked anyway. So it's like, I mean,
look who's here.
Oh,
hi. Welcome to the show.
Our youngest CoinSec podcast guest so far.
That's awesome.
Sorry, it was a Hebrew moment for.
That's okay.
Okay, so keeping it real. So what was the question?
Just the idea of like bug bounties that are awarding $1 million for these issues. Like, what is the incentive for somebody who is really good at smart contract auditing to not just go do bug bounties all day and actually work for a company and do smart contract auditing? Is basically
well, ethics, I guess, moral. Some of you were red teamers, and you can use your powers for the bad. So it could be ethics, or just you are afraid like you would get caught. Like even if I look it for a second, I thought like, okay, I understand this multi-chain hack. I know how to do it. Maybe I didn't really thought I would be a black hat hacker, but maybe I'll do a white hat and try to save some people
rescue
money.
the funds for them.
But then I said, okay, why should I take all the liability on myself? Like even if I'm successful in doing it, okay. All of a sudden I have like millions of dollars, and it all depends on my private key. So like if I get hacked, like who's liable, etc. So it's kind of, I didn't want to do it. Maybe like 20 years ago, I would have done it because I wouldn't think about the consequences and so on. But I think we cannot underestimate moral and ethics. And I suppose we should, educate our bright researchers that, you should, of course, you can earn more if you turn to the dark side, but stay, we need to stay.
I mean, even if they're not like doing it as a black hat, I mean, just doing bug bounties, like just basically spending all day, like just trying to find these kinds of issues and making $1 million as opposed to, working for, a company. Like, I guess the thing I'm asking is like, should smart contract auditing firms be getting paid more, right? Like, should, instead of, like paying out $1 million bug bounty, should they be paying, $250,000 to $500,000 for an audit or something? Well, and just having like 6 months of time dedicated to it or something crazy,
So personally, I'm not a big believer in auditing. Like maybe it's just because of me, because I cannot stare at code, and it's. I don't think it's efficient, and there are some good startups that try to automate that, and it makes sense. You can get something out of this, I guess, but there's so much you can do with auditing. It also like as I heard some of you were actual soldiers, so the auditing is one thing. It's very defensive. Like you can, like if your mindset is offensive, it's hard for you to do defensive work, and the other way around. Like it's like I'm not sure. Like paying more for auditors will help. And I'm not really convinced that a guy that is interested in finding holes to attack would be as successful when they're reading a lot of uninteresting code all the time. Like it's not the same market. It's not paying more for auditors. I don't think it would work. I think like you should get audited for sure. That makes sense. Again, depends on how much money you're handling, and threat model. But I think we should have more things. Like right now, all we have is just auditing and bounties. That's all the defense layers we have, which are really passive. We don't have any equivalent of, for example, threat intelligence. We don't have an equivalent of web of firewalls, like to protect. And I really think there's potential in firewalls. We talked a little bit before the show about projects like FOTA of OpenZeppelin that really is about monitoring the blockchain and even the mempool before it gets executed, and then alerting on things that happened. And OpenZeppelin, because they're also like originally they're coming from writing contracts and also auditing, like you can add like a detection point or intervention point within the contract that can be triggered from that detection. For example, like if I know how to automatically identify a reentrancy attack, then I would maybe pause that contract automatically and save a lot of funds for the project or for my users. And then I have the time to fix things and without getting exploited all the time. So I think there must be more and more projects like that. One cool thing is that I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but like someone that was, I don't think it's a solution, but someone was manually looking into contracts that were deployed from an address that got funded from Tornado. So this is kind of suspicious contract. And then they saw like with which functions they are going to interact, and that gave the threat intelligence in advance on the next attack, and we were able to stop the attack before it even started. So this is really cool stuff, and I assume that we have a lot of such concept in the in Web 2. Like we spent 25 years of building Web 2, and starting from really awful security model into something rather sustainable that we have today. And it would be a shame, to just starting over from scratch in Web 3. We have to take a look into what we did in Web 2 and try to see which of the concepts are really applicable to Web 3. And my feeling is there's a lot of concepts that are applicable. Absolutely. And with so much money at stake, we have to have more compensating controls.
Yeah, we've talked about it on the show many times that your typical approach of contract auditing may not apply for all situations. You have to do that defense in depth and even offensive in depth if you're testing these things. Okay, so you have a Web3 dApp. Where is it running? Are your SSH keys secured? What's on the infrastructure?
Is it a multi-sig key?
Yeah, multi-sig. Are your users going through phishing awareness training? How about that Discord key that you keep losing and all your funds get stolen? There's more layers to it that we can apply, and I think that the security audits by themselves are kind of doing a disservice to our, like you said, to the whole foundation that we've built up until now.
Well, it's like PCI compliance, right? You put the check mark on your site. It says you're audited. That doesn't mean you can't be hacked. It doesn't mean you can't be compromised. Exactly. It doesn't mean you're secure. It's kind of the first step that is kind of getting generally used as like if I'm a end user and I'm seeing this, oh, they're audited, so it's fine. I can put $100,000 in, no big deal. But yeah, I mean, I think it's over time there's going to be more looking into history. How are they paying up? Do they have a bug bounty program? Have they paid out big bug bounties? Are they just a company that got hacked and then changed their name? You know what I mean? Like,
so you bring up a good point, and that's to something that we have a little further in the show, but I'll just bring it up now. So trusting a previously hacked platform, are you more or less inclined to use that platform if they've recovered from the attack, or have they just changed their name and they're just starting over with the same routine? Right?
It's hard to say. Did they learn from their mistakes, or did they just, like the one company, I forget who it was that we were going to talk about, but they just changed CEOs. You know what I mean? They're like begging people. They're like begging people on Twitter. They're like, please, we're cool now. We changed CEOs. It's all good, yo. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's up to the yeah, really. It's up to the user to decide, okay, well, was it the CEO that deployed the vulnerable smart contract? I don't know.
Not.
You tell me.
All right, moving on. So, Tal, you'd mentioned bringing up the OpenSea issue a little bit. So, yeah, we've kind of talked about that a little bit on the show previously, but it's been getting a lot more news the last couple weeks because apparently, people are sniping various assets on OpenSea that have been previously listed at a certain price, and like that issue basically comes when somebody lists an item and then they try to transfer it away instead of canceling that item and then transfer it back. The listing shows up at the previous listing price, and then they're getting sniped. So what are your thoughts on that particular issue with OpenSea?
Yeah, so one insight there is first, like the like gas is I don't remember, maybe it was Ledger CTO, I think Charles, that says that gas is really creating gas issues are creating all kind of weird engineering, and we're doing all kind of crazy stuff that we didn't think about because we want to save gas. So like one of the most noticeable example is of course approving ERC20 to the max, but also in that case that because users, like normally they should have canceled their listing, but they found some loophole that the front end did not make them do that if they transferred their funds. So they did that in order to avoid paying the crazy amounts of gas to cancel their listing. And you can argue if it's a bug or not, a vulnerability or not. In my book, if you are fixing it, then it's probably, you can call it a bug in the first place. And again, I think it reminds me a lot of the multi-chain thing, because again, it's like, how was it fixed? It's just the front end is now pointing to, it's not enabling you to relist without canceling your previous order. But users that already did that, like, and relisted multiple times, they're still in trouble. Very much like users that has approval, uncancelled the approval in multi-chain. Like there's users that have past listing in OpenSea and they are open to the attack. So it's the same thing in my eyes, that fix is only fixing for future users, which is great, but it's not solving for other users. And it's just like multi-chain, all multi-chain users had to manually revoke their approval. This user need to manually revoke their old listing, which is not ideal. And there are some like smarter design patterns like for that, like the one used, I didn't check it, but read on Twitter that LuxRare, for example, has a sequence number for their for listing. So whenever you can relist, and it implicitly cancels your previous listing, because right now the system knows in which sequence number you are. So all their listings are just not accepted.
Yeah, and I think also they added in a functionality that if you go to transfer it, it will tell you that you need to cancel it first, or they at least warn you
Yeah.
that's a problem.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's not a full fix.
Right. Awesome. All right, so we still have a few other stories to kind of get through here. Let's see. There was a big one, Crypto.com hack, $30 million. So Crypto.com said that cybercriminals had breached its security systems earlier in the week and made off with more than $30 million in stolen Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, I think one of the biggest things around this particular hack was that people were saying that like their 2FA was getting bypassed. I don't know, Steve, Corey, like guys, have you seen anything else around like more info around that? Because I don't think that there were any like full details released.
Yeah, we were speculating about it yesterday on the news, and I think my gut says it's probably something similar to what happened with Coinbase that we talked to Jack about last week. Just like API stuff that wasn't fully locked down, or people, not realizing their info is exposed in a certain endpoint that isn't, two-factor protected fully. I assume it wasn't just a trivial like, oh, well, you just go to login dot instead of sign in dot, and now you don't need like I mean, I don't know, but I don't think any full details have been released about obviously we found out with Coinbase it takes months for this stuff to kind of shake out and for people to disclose this stuff fully, but at least that's all I know. But
in our talking with Jack last week, he brought up a good point that credential stuffing and two-factor phishing. If let's say you've got a public breach from another company and you just scrape the emails out of there, or that these were crypto-related accounts or something like that, then you can phish those with a 2FA bypass or portal, where they enter their creds and it actually logs them into to crypto.com, and then you get their MFA key and session token and all that stuff, and you can stay logged in pretty much as long as you want, or as long as it's good for, which kind of sounds maybe what they did, because they had to go.
They revoked all.
They revoked them.
Yeah.
So I guess using Tal's metric, if they fixed it, it must have been a problem.
I think it was a two-factor bypass. Obviously, we don't know for sure, but there was some kind of bypass, and that allowed them to, maybe they still needed the password, obviously, so that's the credential stuffing. So it's like not just like, oh, well, they just went to a different URL and suddenly logged them in, But yeah.
I don't know. If you look at like Microsoft endpoints, that's how it is.
Well, we don't always get Microsoft lucky,
Well, remember, Bo,
go hit Exchange Web Services and you're good with single factor.
Remember, Bo, when we found that bypass for Twitch?
Yeah. That was a good
so
one
there's
too.
always a third-party endpoint they had allowed for OBS software. And OBS was open source. So we looked through the code, saw this other API, and went and authenticated to it without multi-factor, right? So,
well, there was.
If I remember correctly, they just silently fixed that, right?
Yeah. They didn't say anything, but it was a feature. It was a feature.
There was a lot of ways to screw up MFA. We talked yesterday on the news about Box, the file sharing site. They had an issue where if you could log into someone else's account and then use your MFA token to authenticate. Like basically, like they weren't checking like the MFA token matching like the user account. So like if you just said like, here's a token challenge that matches an account, they were like, good to go.
Yeah. So what they were doing, they were given a session token, but like that session token wouldn't let you get into the account yet until you kind of did the multi-factor. But what they weren't validating on the backside was whether that multi-factor actually was for the account that you got a session token for. So when you sent the multi-factor, like your authenticator app with that session token at the same time, they were like, oh yeah, must be for this account because that's the session token you sent me. And this authenticator, well, I don't care what account it's for. All right, you're in.
I mean, like I said, outer joins are really hard in SQL, so it makes sense. Yeah. But I mean, this whole crypto.com thing is kind of an example of how not to respond to a hack, because at first they're just like, it's not a hack. What, $15 million have been stolen according to security researchers? It's not a hack. Then now they're like, no, passwords. It's a hack. Yeah. I mean, it's just, I guess it is kind of like, PeckShield is saying like, you're getting hacked, and they're like, no, it's fine. But you can literally look at the money flowing out. So it's kind of like, it's,
your house is on fire. No, it's just warm right now.
But I can see on your webcam there's smoke in the background. Like, I don't know. It's interesting. Obviously, now they've fully embraced it, and they have created a program designed to refund users who are affected for up to $250,000. So
hopefully there's not a bypass for that.
Well, based on their programming, they might not be matching up who actually got stolen. So
Yeah, you never know.
They're like, hi, I got a lot of money stolen. How much? Just submit a ticket.
On this edition of Bad Ideas.
We don't watch the blockchain. If we did, we would have known it was a hack before. I don't know.
So Steve, you put in the next story, I think, about trusting a previously hacked platform.
Yeah, we just kind of circled ahead on that earlier, so I think we're covered there about whether or not you trust somebody.
Do your research. If you are a consumer, look into how it was hacked. First of all, was it like
by watching our show?
Yeah, by watching our show. Look at I guarantee we've covered it in a previous episode, so just find that.
Yeah.
And then also look at how they fixed it, how they changed. Just swapping out CEOs is not how you fix a smart contract. You can't ultimately, if the code's bad, the code's bad. Now, if the CEO got social engineered and just leaked the key, that's a different story. But so it's all about making a personal decision about whether you think you trust that company with your money.
When they fired the intern.
We changed our name from badrugs.inc to goodrugs.inc.
Good rugs,
yeah.
Our old CEO was big on rugs. We stopped. We have a new CEO.
We stopped doing that. Yeah, we're reformed.
So next story we got is the Float price Oracle manipulation attack. So Float protocol pool 90 on Rari Capital pool suffered effects from a lack of liquidity in the Uniswap v3 Float to USDC Oracle, which led to severe price manipulation.
Yep.
Isn't severe price manipulation part of the blockchain? I thought that was part of the fun.
That actually is a feature.
That's just daily. It's the daily roller coaster, man. Especially right now, jeez.
Let's not even talk about it. It'll all make us cry.
So yeah, Bo, how did this work? Explain it in that way that you do, where somehow I understand it, even though I don't.
So how does the manipulation work? I'll tell you. The attacker brought in over 47 ETH via what's our favorite
Tornado.
Tornado. And deployed an orchestrating contract. Via the contract, they swapped 47 ETH to around 130,000 USDC, and then finally to 77.5 thousand float. This brought the vast majority of float out of the pool, dramatically increasing the price within the float USDC pool. So it's typical price manipulation kind of deal here, right?
Flash loans. Just not. It's like don't do drugs. Don't do flash loans, people. Don't do it.
Yeah, I think, by the way, it could be, a good case maybe for, threat intelligence. Like you see tornado, you see flash loan, you see etc. So, there's a good place for, to put in all kind of defenses for that in place, because
I can't imagine paying the gas to beat them though.
Well, dude, flash loans are like the LSAS of smart contracts. Like if you touch a flash loan, you're probably a bad guy, especially if it's for like $20 million.
Well, I think it's a big enough problem to have a dedicated solution for that. I don't know exactly what is the solution, but like the problem size probably makes it worth the while to try and put on all kind of defensive mechanisms against that.
Yeah, and so Tal, we actually talked about that exact thing. So that story where they were watching Tornado Cash, fund an account and then send transactions for specific functions. And so the thing that I am curious about is that unless unless they were doing it against the exact verified test contract, right? You wouldn't. I mean, you theoretically wouldn't be able to necessarily know it's the exact same thing, right? Unless you compare the bytecode. But I guess so theoretically you could do that, right? Like you could compare a live, like for example, this contract from the float pool to something that's been deployed to the test net, right? And then just like watch transactions that are interacting with it, and then potentially develop some kind of protection.
You do it like EDR, man. You do it like EDR, where you have these behavioral indicators, where you have like, okay, so just someone touching LSS is not a big deal unless it's an EXE that was just deployed in the last 5 minutes, and it's unsigned binary, whatever, like similar to endpoint protections. You could do the same thing on the blockchain, where you're like, they got a flash loan. That's number one anomaly. Number two, the amount, because it's $200 million or something, like a huge amount. Number three, they, add in tornado, just like put that in there. And, if you combine all three, then maybe the contract just gets paused. But I guess it's a DOS then, right? But once people figure that out, but I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but maybe, you are limiting, like, it's in the contract, but you're have all kind of limits to what you can do in one transaction. Like, it's defensive, and probably most of your users are not interested in in transferring millions. And so if it happens, it's a manipulation. So could be like a simple mechanism there that just caps the max a transaction, for example, and that solves many of these problems. Also, what I want to say, like in some parts, like deploying a contract on the mainnet, like looking at the testnet and trying to figure out what happens there and applying to the mainnet, it's like next level. But you have to deploy a contract on the mainnet beforehand. For, let's say, for re-entrancy attack, there must be a contract there that goes back, etc. So you can look into that. It has to be deployed beforehand. So, and usually the attacker would do it with tornado or something like that. So there would be some warning signs there, or all kinds of things you can do. So I think really, if you like open your horizons and not limit yourself to the perimeter of, okay, all I have is a smart contract, and what can I do? Audit and offer bug bounties. Like, you can be very creative on defense, just like attackers are very creative on offense. You cannot play with one hand tied behind your back, because all I can do is just audit.
Mm-hmm.
You have to open your mind.
And I mean, this should be something that you test out, right? What happens if the balance of the pool gets wonky and something happens? I mean, we talk about price oracles being kind of maybe not the cause, but they affect how. I mean, if they were doing this some other way, and I don't know of another way to do it better than whatever price oracle they were using, but that's what sets the price. So if you can manipulate that feed that's into that, then you can manipulate the price.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on price oracles, Tal? Have you dived into those at all?
Yeah. So what I know, price oracles, I just read like a week ago a very good blog by OpenZeppelin. I think they should pay me for the amount of time that I'm telling their name, but like it's really good blog, and it gives all the options for price oracle. And also you can have all kind of ways, like maybe you can take multiple oracles, like so it's harder to manipulate. You can take like what's happening in, let's say, Uniswap, but also something others, and also taking maybe something centralized, and then you just can it's make it way harder for, if you are relying on a single source, then you totally rely on that, and it could be even not necessarily price manipulation. Even there is a bug there, or like something happens there, or it returns something you wouldn't expect because it's just an edge case, and all of a sudden, like you're selling ETH for $0 value or something like that. So everything can happen. And I think like the main answer there is having a plurality there, and not just a single oracle. Of course, it's easier said than done, because like you invest more resources in getting more and more price oracles when your programmer wants to, do the next functionality, or the CEO in that case, because we all know the CEO actually deploys the smart contracts, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think
He's in charge.
you could also build, bumpers in, like you mentioned edge cases. You could build in like, okay, if the price goes below $1,000 for an ETH, just don't trade or whatever. Like you can try to do that, but I guess it goes against what a lot of these things stand for, which is a completely decentralized, completely unregulated market, which there are downsides to that, like pump and dumps are legal on a decentralized and deregulated market. So it's now kind of funny. We're building in a lot of the bumpers that exist on like conventional finance platforms to, okay, let's make it so that, if the S&P 500 or whatever drops more than 1,000 points in a day, we just halt trading. We just turn it off. It's like, on the blockchain, we're kind of getting back to that where we're like, pause the contract, like something bad is happening. So yeah, I think it goes back to defense in depth. You have to implement edge case detection in your pricing model.
So one of the things we talked about earlier was the idea of finding an issue in your contract and then saving your users by basically exploiting that as like a white hat of sorts, right? So one of the stories we have for this week is from a group called Redacted Cartel. They had a potential vulnerability of around $3 million that was discovered. And they actually went through that process. Since they couldn't upgrade or pause the contract, they actually chose to leverage the bug and white hack their own contract to safeguard user funds. I looked into this a little bit this morning, but I didn't find like what the actual issue was here. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting talking point to kind of talk around the idea of exploiting your own contracts in order to save funds.
I'd do it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's the last resort, but it's better than just letting your users to be hacked by a real attacker. So it's certainly not ideal, but it's the lesser evil, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's good to know. I guess it kind of does also show that they have the expertise to fix the problem and are able to do it faster than the attackers, or at least perceived faster than the attackers, which is probably a pretty good thing, honestly, if you think about it, that they're able to, read into a community discovered issue and then develop a fix, even though they're realizing our hands are tied on certain things, but, the fix is here and we're, we're going to exploit ourselves to fix it. But the worst case scenario when I'm reading that email is all funds are gone. And it doesn't say that. So I guess it's better than it could be.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the next story. This one is an NFT exploit around a project called CryptoBurger.
Oh, the burger.
Yeah, so situation is currently being thoroughly investigated.
Of course.
One of the things I thought was kind of interesting around this is the initial hack, I guess. Whenever that happened, they sent a transaction that basically just said check your email.
This was a sandwich attack, right? Or was this a different one?
No, I think it's
sorry,
a
that was
one.
a bad pun. I'm sorry.
Yeah, got it.
Oh, he's on the food.
Hilarious. Yeah, so the hacker deployed the contract and in the same transaction sent a message that said, "Hi, please check your email." And then after seeing this, they went and checked it, and they responded to them. Basically, the attacker said, "I own a bot that front run profitable transaction." Bot front ran a transaction 15 hours ago, and I think I don't know how much the total was for this, but they made off with quite a bit, I think. They had a brief conversation. The attacker ended up returning 974 BNB, and they haven't heard from him since.
Wow, he paid 21,000 gas. Ooh.
A lot of gas.
Yeah.
Not on BNB, I don't think it is.
It isn't? I don't know that how much the gas. Why is there even gas on BNB? Isn't it proof of stake? I'm confused.
There's always
was
a cost to your transaction.
There's always gas.
This was on Binance.
Oh, they said
Yeah.
BNB, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's still gas, but it's really, really, really cheap, like super cheap.
Yeah, this is a really complex attack. Oh wow! Even just reading through how these NFTs are minted is really complicated.
Yeah, and think about it. The more complex it is, and the easier it is to hack some cases. We see that in the InfoSec industry. If you've got a small network to protect, it can be easier. But if you expand that, now you've got contracts over here, contracts over there. You've got a department in LA. You've got one in New York. Buildings over here, one in another country. Then you've got more attack surface to protect. So.
Mm-hmm. The next story we have is it's a malware that's targeting crypto wallets. So actually, Tal, you probably will like this one.
I like everything here.
So I guess you would call this BHUNT, maybe BHUNT. I'm gonna go with BHUNT. A novel modular crypto wallet stealing malware dubbed BHUNT has been spotted targeting cryptocurrency wallet contents, passwords, and security phrases. And so the current modules included in the BHUNT mscrlib.exe executable are described as having a blackjack module that steals wallet file contents. There's a chaos crew that downloads payloads. There's Golden 7 that steals passwords from the clipboard and uploads the files to a C2 server. Sweet Bonanza steals information from browsers, so like probably browser passwords, cookies, that kind of stuff, I'd imagine. And then Mr. Proper cleans up traces.
Okay, so what this really is, it's Cobalt Strike with a bunch of C# and PowerShell scripts being run.
I also like how they include a file name. The BHUNT file name is mscrlib.exe. Okay. Okay, yeah, whatever you say. I mean, that's honestly the one that I'm the most interested in is Sweet Bonanza, stealing things from browsers. Like, what does that mean? Are they just stealing like session tokens, URLs, history, or are they actually like going into plugins and doing Web3 stuff? That's kind of where it gets scary, because everything else is just kind of traditional, like, what we would call normal malware, I guess, like stealing files and encoding them with base64. That sounds straight out of 2005. Like, it's
think about that, Corey. You're right, with the session tokens and stuff like that from the browser. Then you have access to crypto.com or wherever they've logged into recently, and you can steal their cookies. That might be more impactful than, say, grabbing your password protected wallet DAT file.
Right.
The browser module would certainly be effective. Tal, what's your takes?
Yeah, I think it also like it's rather basic thing. Well, at the end of the day, probably trying to get seeds, etc., and just use them. And this is like the problem of like there's a clear trade-off between usability and security. Like, you want to have a wallet that works on your laptop with the big screen, etc., and not play all day with your hardware wallet and this flimsy screen. But then if you cannot eat your cake and have it, I guess, like, there's trade-off, especially when the key is just in one place. So I think, of course, I'm getting high on our own supply, but the solution is really about not putting all your eggs in one basket, so to say, and using multi-party computation in order to distribute that private key. So even if that crazy Cobalt Strike based malware is able to grab something from your less protected PC, you still have, let's say, a share on your mobile or even in your hard wallet. So I think the way around that is really that distributing the private key around in a smart way, not in an idiotic way that just cutting it and chopping it and then reassembling it. So thank you for letting me push some ZenGo propaganda.
So yeah,
to your
that's
show.
a good question. How, as a company that runs a wallet, do you respond to these kind of malware at all, or do you just say like, well, I don't see how that would affect us? Like, do you do anything about these? Do you investigate them and see if they work against your wallet, or how do you how do you approach this kind of news?
So first of all, we're interested. We have a good, like a lot of guys with security background, but first of all, like we're already, like we are a mobile wallet, so like the environment of mobile application is much better than Windows or any PC environment, because it's more of a closed garden in either iOS or Android. Like there are app stores, and if the device is not jailbroken, etc., like there's better compartmentalization between processes and so on. And also we're using like all the new good stuff in the hardware, like secure enclaves of phones, etc. So like we wouldn't be hacked with a Cobalt Strike. Of course, if there's like NSO grade exploit that costs millions of dollars to use, then it can hack. Like everything is hackable, but still, like you would hack the iOS, and then you need another exploit and guess to get the second, like the other part of the secret, which is on our service of the EC2 service in completely different environment. So I think it's more of security by design, and it's better than running around your tail and trying to catch all the new malware, because this would be just solving the antivirus problem that we're trying to get a good working antivirus since the 80s, and we're not successful, and we won't be successful because it's very hard, even theoretically, to know what is good and what is bad in software. So like a good design an architecture can save you a lot of security efforts afterward. So that's our tech. We're just built for
You're saying
security.
Assumed compromise, which is what I like to hear, right? You're basically saying we plan it to all go wrong from the very beginning, instead of having these extremely, we put all of our eggs in the basket of this. Yeah,
and then get caught off guard.
Yeah. So again, every time I say something like that, like maybe there will be something that we didn't think of. So I don't want to come off, like, okay, we got it all figured
don't
out.
say you're unhackable.
but how it's
Nobody
designed.
do that.
Yeah. We're not saying we're just saying it would be harder than others, and we thought a lot about it. And also, it's not that clear. Like it's day-to-day fight. You're fighting with the good argument of the product manager that said, look, I don't like, we need to get more features in. Don't, put more security. We have enough security in our wallet. Let's get some features in. So it's hard to keep this balance. It's day-to-day fight, but I hope we got just enough good security in to save us and save our users. So I would say we're like, everything can be better, but I think we are in a good grade from that perspective of key stealing.
If you put in flash loans, I will say you went too far, but otherwise.
Yeah, so it was like, I think like 4 years ago, John McAfee was shilling an unhackable wallet. And like a week later, it got hacked.
It's like the Titanic, right? An unsinkable ship. What could go wrong?
I assure you, it is steel. It will sink.
So we have a couple more stories to get through here, and then we'll wrap things up today. I know we're going a little bit long, but all right. So this was actually a pretty big one. Crypto YouTubers had their accounts hacked. This is like maybe 10 or so different accounts out there that were crypto related. Yeah, big ones. Andreas Antonopoulos, Altcoin Buzz, Floyd Mayweather. was one, which is kind of interesting to be kind of lumped in with the crypto.
Yeah,
Isn't
isn't
he in some bit of a trouble now?
He's getting
for his
sued
crypto?
for shilling. Yeah, he's getting sued for shilling. What was it? The Ethereum.
Ethereum Max.
Yeah, Ethereum Max. It's like
max.
Pepsi
Yep.
Max. It's the Pepsi Max of Ethereum.
It tastes just as good.
No, it doesn't.
Yep.
Turns out it's a rug.
And it turns
Yeah,
out they
so I don't
didn't
think-
they didn't get very much either.
Yeah. So apparently, they hacked these accounts and then used them to basically host a like a fake donate here page or something, right?
Mhm.
That's the lamest
that- I mean,
possible way
we've
to
seen-
use this.
And I mean, we've seen that used before. Like I think we talked about it whenever there was one of the SpaceX launches. Like there was a ton of
Oh,
accounts that pretended to be Elon, saying like they accept crypto now and to like buy in or whatever. But yeah, so this particular issue, apparently they only got like $850 worth of BMD. A little bit of a fail.
They probably put more into just the infrastructure to get this thing right.
You would
They're
think,
It
really
was
yeah.
all
scary.
SIM swapping. It looks like.
TBD, because the scary thing is
Yeah.
no one knows how it happened, or at least no one has like. Some people
That
are
was the
saying it's
theory
SIM
from
swapping.
Reddit. Yeah.
Yeah, some people are saying it's SIM swapping, but then one of the persons that was compromised says, I didn't lose my access to Google. I didn't get any text messages. I didn't lose access to my phone, which, how are you going to get the text if I'm getting the text? But yeah, I could be rogue. Like people are speculating, could be rogue employee at YouTube, could be some kind of issue with, YouTube, like kind of like the Twitter thing where some teenager calls in and is like, hi, I work at Twitter. Can I have access to this API? And they're like, sure.
So
Yeah. I don't
are
know.
you saying insider possibly at YouTube that gave a little access out?
Well, we
I mean, there's
saw a
options.
similar.
That's
Yeah,
how,
I was gonna say we saw
that's
a
how
very similar
Twitter,
attack
right?
with Twitter.
Yeah.
Well,
That-
kind
that,
of.
that was the
Kind
whole
of.
thing. It was like a high level inside attack that they
Kind
sold
of.
off to a bunch of teenagers.
Kind of inside, kind of not. I mean, that's the question, right? I mean, these big companies like YouTube have tons of contractors and API, they have
Mhm.
like mid-tier support and things like that may be able to do things that
This is the
everyone
same with
can't.
SIM swapping too. There's people on there who are just selling that as a service, right? They work at
insiders
the
at
company,
T-Mobile or Verizon or whoever,
making an extra kickback. Yep.
And that, we discussed that during the Coinbase hacks, where like they have these scammer rings that run on Discord or wherever, and they go and have insiders at T-Mobile that help them with SIM swaps or help them disclose information about these accounts or their addresses and things like that.
And I'm sure that like the recordings of them doing it, it's not like they're probably doing it in the back. They're like having the other person that they know call and then go through the process and like asking him these questions and like being like, validating, like just setting up the whole scenario so it makes it look so they can keep doing it for a long time, looking like, oh, I just made a mistake or they gave me all the relevant information I'm supposed to ask for, blah, 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 right?
So they're, I guess in this case, okay at social engineering, okay at scamming, and good at gaining access to accounts, but terrible at actually getting money. I mean, this is a fail from like a scamming perspective. So they're not that good at their jobs, but it's still scary, when you think about the potential of this kind of an attack, right? I think maybe the attackers knew that they were only in temporarily, that they only had the ability to do something for a limited window. But from my perspective, you'd be more successful over time, like adding little bits and bobs to videos to be like, like add a little like, oh, and by the way, buy this token, or I don't know, you know what I mean? Like creepy, and try to like be persistent for a longer period of time. But maybe that wasn't an
why
option.
only these accounts? If you've got API access or something like that, wouldn't you go for maybe some bigger fish?
Maybe
like Mr. Musk.
Yeah, maybe.
I just bought all this Dogecoin.
Yeah,
Get
right.
in.
Doge.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, hopefully we'll find out more later. Hopefully we'll figure out, as the attack unfolds. Hopefully YouTube will respond, although getting them to respond is impossible. So they probably won't.
Yeah.
But
It probably is, though, one of those things where it wasn't just like one huge insider attack. It most likely was a bunch of things all chained together. And these people happen to all fit the category of being famous enough and having this enabled. And, so, yeah.
Either way, I guess take it with a grain when a YouTuber asks for donations which everyone did because no one actually donated. Like literally, no one bought this.
I don't
Worst
like this.
fish ever.
Yeah.
No.
They had a lot of
Yeah, so I was gonna say, like, this next story that we have is actually, like, to me, like, one of the coolest things that's happened in a while. So this is a story about cracking a hardware wallet to get $2 million worth of crypto off of it. And so brief background on the story. So in early 2018, Dan Reich and a friend decided to spend 50 grand in Bitcoin on a batch of Theta tokens, which was only like 21 cents at the time. And they put it on a Trezor 1 hardware wallet. They set up a pin, and then they got busy and forgot about it. And now that's worth like $2 million. And so they enlisted the help of Joe Grand, who is super popular in the hardware hacking community. He developed the JTagulator, like a few other pieces of hardware that are well used in the world of electronics hacking and hardware hacking. And apparently, using an old exploit from around that time, he was able to actually get the pin from the hardware wallet itself, by actually attaching and working with the chip itself. So guys, like, I mean, do we just go to the dump now and try to find some old hardware wallets that have just been like tossed out because people forgot their pins?
Don't go to the dump, man. Go to eBay. I guarantee you people are selling.
Yeah.
I guarantee you people are. There's a secondary market for wallet access that you can't crack, right? Like,
what do you mean eBay? There's one in my freaking safe right now. It's probably vulnerable too. Jesus.
Well, so yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing. Two things. First of all, these wallets can be updated, and every time you connect a hardware wallet, it's probably going to want to update the firmware, which there's a whole slew of, potentially you're getting a malicious firmware, blah, blah, blah. But if you have physical access to the wallet, it does sort of like logically play that there could be vulnerabilities associated with the actual hardware that, an attacker running remotely wouldn't be able to use.
So that's like kind of like what
but
this
also, why didn't they write
about.
down their seed phrase? Come on.
That they have, yeah, right. That's like the number one thing you do. It asks you every time. Anyways,
it comes with the piece of paper.
Got it. But either way, these devices are meant to be, resistant to the physical access piece, right? Where if you enter the wrong pin so many times, either increases the amount of lockout and all the other fun stuff. But I guess I was reading that this was, something that is kind of unpatchable. As far as the hardware goes, like the only way to fix it is newer hardware, right? Like you can't just like firmware update this. But to your point, nothing is unbreakable. But it does take the very specific kind of person and the amount of time and the reward available to do this, right? The same way, NSO Group or whoever developing or buying these 0 days, right? Like they're not just like popping them out. Like, you just can't go down to the store and pick these up, right? Like this is difficult. So, I mean, awesome attack, obviously demonstrating, taking what someone thought was secure and kind of dissecting it and really putting it through its limits. Well,
don't forget, this is also contract work.
Yeah.
So the wallet owner contracted Joe Grand to actually crack this.
Yeah.
So there is a market out there, a secondary cottage industry of wallet hacking, right? And I guess it's up to the researcher to determine whether it's legit, right? Like if someone hits you up on Discord and says, "I send you wallet, you send me key, $50 USD," it might not be good.
Honestly, I think there's going to be a whole industry in the very near future of like wallet gold or Bitcoin hunting and stuff like that. I mean, I know that it exists now, but it will continue to get bigger as the value of cryptocurrency increases. And that kind of market where, you go and find some, help somebody discover some either recover it on a physical wallet or something like that later on could be pretty interesting.
So keep those wallets.
I think just say I didn't have the chance to see the full video, but it looks really interesting. Like Joe Grant posted like 30 minutes video of how he did it. So definitely going to see. If I wasn't going to this podcast, I probably already seen it.
We appreciate
I
having.
recommend it. It looks really fun. Like good 30. If you can spare 30 minutes. Also, I really like the past works of Joe Grant. So I assume you would enjoy that. So I'm definitely going to watch that after the show.
Yeah,
Well,
I did want to note that
go ahead.
I don't know if you said it, Bo, but Trezor did respond to Verge and said that they wanted to add that the vulnerability was fixed and that new devices are already shipped with the new bootloader.
Yeah, but I don't want to buy the new device.
Right? Do you trust it? Like if the exchange got hacked?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely
Although, like Tal said, it's a lot harder, a lot more intense to do hardware wallets. So yeah, keep that in perspective.
yeah. I
So,
mean it's
last thing.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say last thing, guys. So the last piece of news here is that apparently Walmart is jumping into the metaverse and NFTs. They appear to be venturing into this new world, just like a lot of other companies we've seen. And I just thought it was kind of interesting. This is obviously not a security thing, but it's interesting to kind of note that like we're going to see more and more larger organizations. Like when is Amazon going to open up their NFT marketplace?
So does this mean that I can sit on my couch, virtually walk through Walmart, pick up let's say I want to buy some bananas, I want to go buy some diapers or something, and then hey, there's an NFT on the wall, I'm going to buy that. Is that where this is going? Like metaverse / digital purchasing, all that stuff. I already don't like going to Walmart as it is.
Yeah,
maybe
is the
from the couch
Walmart
might be
metaverse
better.
going to be as bad as the Walmart in real life?
Yeah,
like, are there
like-
going to be people just like fighting as you get in? Like, there's just two guys.
And everybody goes to Walmart in their sweatpants and whatever.
Yeah,
they need a People of Walmart integration
People of
into
Walmart,
actual
exactly.
VR Walmart.
Yeah, I mean, someone's going to have to design some NFT clothing that's like, XXXL spandex, and it, you know what I mean? Like, that's going to have to be an option to equip that to make it realistic. I mean, I think, dude, it goes without saying, every company at some point is going to make their play, right? Because someone at every company right now is saying, we can sell code for $1 million and people will buy. Like, everyone's making that pitch. So I think it's inevitable that all the retailers are going to be like, hold on, we don't have to sell stuff. We can just sell like pictures of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's going to happen.
Yeah, I guess I foresee it. I think I saw a video on it. You're actually walking down the aisle picking items, and then they bring it to you go pick it up outside the store, right? It's kind of like your delivery, but you get that interaction piece of actually fake being in the store.
Man, that sounds so much worse than add to cart, personally.
I know,
where
right?
I sit, but I mean, the metaverse is all unproven, man. I mean, we've all done VR chat or like some of these metaverse apps. It's just like it's kind of worse than like
Than real life.
Yeah, it's definitely worse in real life, but also kind of like we built online shopping so we didn't have to walk through stores. So adding back in the part where I have to walk through Walmart doesn't seem super
right. It's like you're not on vacation. You're not there to enjoy yourself. You want to get your stuff and get out.
Right. And even if Walmart's on a beach with palm trees and, all that stuff, I still don't particularly love walking through it. But I guess there are certain applications, like I think real estate has a real potential for metaverse shopping. If I can shop and walk through a house without having to leave the comfort of my own home, if I can get a 3D tour of a house and see the scale of it and see everything from that remotely, I think there is a market for that. But that's such a niche thing. And ultimately, I really, as a home buyer, do you care more about the layout or do you care more about the fact that the basement's leaking? You know what I mean? So
right.
Who knows?
I care more about test driving my virtual Lambo than I do, going to Walmart or whatever. I want to see that. How am I going to buy my Lambo if I don't know how to drive it yet?
That's yeah. And I mean, but ultimately, at the end of the day, the sad, or I guess happy for some people, reality is that a lot of this stuff, like Lambos, is not about. Well, for most people, isn't about the driving experience. It's about looking like you're in a Lambo, which applies to NFTs too, right? If I look like my Twitter profile has a CryptoPunk on it, I look so much cooler and richer than everyone else. So it's kind of funny. Like NFTs have come full circle. Like Walmart might be selling Lambos someday.
Yeah. Oh,
All right,
man.
I think that's a good quote to end the show on there.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Walmart might be selling Lambos one day. Awesome. Well, Tal, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great having you.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and anytime you want to come on the show and talk about attacks, you're more than welcome to join us again.
Yeah, maybe for the 100th episode.
Oh,
yeah,
we're
we're
gonna
trying
reach
to make
that
that
this
happen.
year. We're getting there.
We're trying to
this
make
year.
it happen this year.
We could have like an all guests allowed podcast. Everyone's allowed.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, we should do that. That'd be fun. Yeah, cool. All right, well, that is it for this episode, everyone. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you go follow Tal on Twitter. I'm going to paste his profile into the Discord here.
And I think, Bo, we had some people mention some audio issues during the thing, so we will be uploading the hopefully fixed audio and stuff afterwards.
Yeah, so we did have some audio issues, but I think that whenever this is done, Ryan has recorded everything, so the final version should have the full audio. But yeah, with that, follow us on YouTube, on Twitter, and we'll catch you next week for episode 54. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.